Hello Milliflex fans, thanks for being such amazing and loyal fans. Please do not forget to like, share, comment and hit the subscribe button on our page as a way of supporting and helping our channel and little community to grow. Thank you. When people talk about miracles, they usually mean something divine, something that happens out of nowhere to save you from despair. But for me, my miracle came with tiny fingers that curled around mine and eyes that shone brighter than any dawn. My miracle's name is Borum. I still remember the night I was thrown out. The scent of rain mixed with my own fear. My clothes soaked, my shoes ruined, my arms wrapped protectively around the small swell of my belly. I was 19, terrified and alone. The house that once held my childhood laughter had shut its doors on me forever, my parents' disgusted voices still echoing in my ears. An Omega who got pregnant without a mate? You've brought shame to this family. That sentence haunted me for years. But even in my darkest nights, even when I slept in abandoned buildings, cleaning diners and carrying boxes at warehouses while battling nausea and pain, I held on to one thought: I'll protect this baby no matter what. And I did. 8 years later I was still here. Still breathing. Still fighting. Appa, you're going to be late again. The shrill, adorable voice of my 8-year-old son pulled me out of my morning daze. Borum was already dressed neatly in his school uniform, sitting at the breakfast table, swinging his short legs as he spooned cereal into his mouth. His hair was dark like mine, but his eyes, large, sharp, calculating, belonged to someone older, someone wiser. I blinked at the time. Oh no, it's already 7:30? I scrambled to grab my bag, half-done toast hanging from my mouth, and Borum chuckled like an old man watching a comedy show. You're hopeless without me, Appa. I gave him a playful glare. Watch your tone, young man. You're the reason I barely slept last night. Because I was studying, he retorted, chin raised. And you said education is important. Not at 2 in the morning, Borum. He grinned, eyes sparkling. But I solved the whole puzzle algorithm I saw online. You said that company you're joining is big, right? Maybe I'll work there too one day. I couldn't help but laugh softly, reaching over to ruffle his hair. Finish elementary school first before you try to take over Seoul's biggest firm, genius. He puffed out his cheeks. You'll see. I had recently been accepted for a position as an administrative assistant at Young Group, the largest firm in Seoul. Getting this job was nothing short of a miracle. After years of struggling with unstable work, low pay, and discrimination for being an unmated Omega with a child, finally, something good had come my way. As I adjusted my tie and checked my reflection, Borum appeared at my side, holding my jacket. You look handsome, Appa. Trying to flatter me before asking for a new video game, huh? He laughed mischievously. Maybe. I bent down to kiss his forehead. Be good at school, okay? I'll pick you up by 6. Okay. Love you, Appa. Love you too, Borum. And as I left our small but cozy apartment, I took a deep breath. This was a new beginning, the first step toward a more stable life for both of us. The Young Group tower was massive, 50 stories of sleek glass and steel, with people in tailored suits moving like clockwork. I'd never felt smaller in my life, but I reminded myself that I'd earned this. I passed all the tests and interviews fair and square. The receptionist smiled politely when I approached. Good morning, sir. You must be the new assistant, Hoziaki-sai, right? Yes, I said, bowing lightly. Your supervisor is Mr. Kong. He'll be showing you around. Mr. Kong turned out to be a strict-looking beta in his 40s, but thankfully not unkind. He explained everything from schedules to protocols. Apparently, the company's CEO was someone named Yong Sung-woo, a man shrouded in rumors. They say he's ruthless, Mr. Kong whispered conspiratorially as we stepped into the elevator. No one's seen him in person, only his top executives. He prefers privacy. I blinked. That's secretive? Mr. Kong nodded. Extremely. But don't worry, you won't ever have to deal with him directly. You'll just handle the lower-level operations. Keep your head down and do your work. You'll be fine. I nodded, relieved. The last thing I needed was to attract attention from a powerful alpha CEO with a reputation for being terrifying. The first few weeks went by smoothly. I fell into a comfortable routine, waking early, working diligently, picking Borum up, cooking dinner, and helping him with his schoolwork. For the first time in years, I felt peaceful. One night, while Borum sat with his laptop on the couch, he asked out of nowhere, Appa, don't you ever get lonely? The question made my spoon pause midway. Lonely? Why would you ask that? He looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes. Because everyone in my class has a mom and a dad. But I only have you. My heart sank a little. Borum, he frowned. You work so hard and never go out. You're always tired. I want you to have someone who loves you, Appa. Someone who loves us. I smiled weakly, brushing his hair. You love me enough for 2 people. But still, he said with stubborn determination. You need a partner. A father for me. I chuckled softly. That's not something you can just order online, Borum. He pouted. We'll see. Little did I know that was his warning. A few days later after work I opened my laptop to check my email, and froze. Congratulations. You've been matched on HeartLink. Click here to view your match. What? I muttered, frowning at the unfamiliar notification. Borum peeked from behind the couch. Oh, you got the message already? I turned to him slowly. What did you do? He smiled guiltily, holding up his tablet. I might have made you a profile on a dating app? Borum. I groaned, pressing a hand to my forehead. You can't just. I used a nice picture of you, and I said you're kind, hardworking, and the best dad ever. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You're unbelievable. Just check the match, he insisted, eyes gleaming. Maybe he's nice. I sighed, giving in to the small boy's enthusiasm. When I clicked the link, a profile appeared. Username, JW Occupation, Corporate Professional Interests, Reading, Quiet Dinners, Nature Walks. About me, I'm not perfect, but I value honesty. Looking for something genuine. The profile picture was simple. A man in a clean white shirt, sitting on a bench, his face turned slightly away from the camera. He looked serene. He seems normal, Borum said, peeking. That's what they all look like before they turn out to be serial killers, I muttered under my breath. But Borum clasped his hands together. Please, Appa. Just talk to him once. I hesitated. Then sighed in defeat. Fine. One message. I typed. Hello, I'm Hosiak. My son apparently made this profile for me. I'm sorry if this is awkward. He's 8 and too curious for his own good. A few minutes later, a reply came. That's okay. I like curious kids. And you must be a good father for him to care so much about your happiness. I smiled despite myself. You think so? I know so. Not many would do what you're doing, raising a child on your own. That takes strength. Something about the words felt warm, comforting. And so I replied again. That night, for the first time in years, I fell asleep smiling, not from exhaustion but from the gentle thrill of connection. The next few weeks we exchanged messages every night. He told me he worked in a corporate environment, but never specified where. I told him about my son, about the struggles of balancing work and parenthood. He listened, truly listened. Sometimes he'd say things that surprised me. If I could, I'd give you a life where you never have to worry again, Hosiak. I laughed it off. That's sweet, but I've already got everything I need. So, you deserve to rest too. There was something soothing about him. Calm, respectful, attentive. When he finally asked if I'd like to meet in person, I hesitated, but Borum caught me typing and squealed. Yes. Go, Appa. You have to go. So I said yes. The meeting place was a quiet cafe near the Han River. I arrived early, nerves twisting in my stomach. My palms were sweaty, my heart pounding. Then a man entered, tall, sharp-featured, with neatly styled black hair and eyes that seemed to hold entire worlds. He wore a simple coat and scarf, yet somehow looked impossibly refined. Hosiak. His voice was deep, calm but warm. I nodded. He smiled faintly. I'm JW. Or well, Young Woo. I blinked. It's nice to meet you. When he smiled again, something inside me fluttered. We talked for hours. About work, life, parenting. He was surprisingly humble, nothing like the domineering alphas I'd met before. There was kindness in his words, quiet strength in his gaze. At one point, when he laughed softly at my joke, I realized how long it had been since I'd seen someone look at me like that, like I mattered. As we stood to leave, our hands brushed. Just briefly. And that single touch left my heart racing. When I got home, Borum was waiting, eyes bright. So, he demanded. Was he nice? Did you kiss? I flushed. Borum. He giggled uncontrollably. You're blushing. That means you like him. I tried to sound stern, but I was smiling. It was just a friendly meeting. But when I went to bed that night, I couldn't stop replaying his smile in my mind, the way his voice had softened when he said my name. There was something about Young Woo, something familiar. And I couldn't shake the strange feeling that our meeting wasn't just fate, it was the start of something I'd been waiting for all my life. It had been 2 weeks since my first date with Young Woo. 2 weeks since a stranger's gentle smile had somehow found its way into my heart. I wasn't used to this, the anticipation, the nervous thrill of waiting for a message, the quiet flutter whenever my phone buzzed. It felt strange and exciting at once, like my world had suddenly regained a color I hadn't seen in years. Every night after Borum went to bed, I'd find myself opening our chat, rereading the things he said. He always asked about my day, about my son, about the little things no one else cared to ask. It wasn't that he said grand words. He was just present, listening, constant. Appa. Borum called one evening, bounding out of his room with his tablet. Did you know your boyfriend doesn't have social media? I nearly choked on my soup. He's not my boyfriend, Borum. He crossed his arms. You've been texting him every night for 2 weeks. That's basically married. Married? Where do you even get these ideas? He grinned mischievously. From dramas. I sighed, shaking my head, but his words stayed with me longer than I cared to admit. When I checked Youngwoo's profile again later, I noticed what Borum meant. No social media links, no tags, nothing that gave away much. It was almost too clean. Still, he was warm and genuine in our chats, not distant or evasive. He told me about his parents living abroad, about growing up with strict expectations, about wanting to live quietly despite having a demanding job. Sometimes I wish I could disappear, he'd said once. From what? I asked. From everyone's eyes. From their expectations. I didn't understand then, but I soon would. At work, life had grown busier. The Young group was expanding, and with that came endless paperwork, coordination, and occasional chaos. Rumors about the CEO were constant. Some said he was merciless in business, others said he was cold, heartless, a man you never wanted to cross. Yet, oddly enough, everyone spoke about him with a strange reverence too, like he was both a ghost and a god. One morning, our division was in a panic. Mr. Kong was pacing furiously. Everyone triple-check your reports. The CEO is coming for an internal audit this week. My heart skipped. He's coming here? Yes, and don't breathe wrong around him. Mr. Kong barked. The entire office transformed into a war zone of cleaning, sorting, and trembling employees. I had no idea why a single person could inspire such fear. Youngwoo and I met again that Friday. This time, he chose a small restaurant tucked in a quiet alley far from the city lights. When I walked in, he was already there, sitting by the window, a faint smile touching his lips when he saw me. You look tired, he said softly. I've been running on caffeine for 3 days, I admitted, laughing. My company's preparing for some audit. The CEO himself is coming, apparently. Everyone's panicking. Something flickered in his eyes, brief, unreadable. Ah, I see. Must be stressful. You have no idea, I sighed then smiled. But seeing you makes it better. He froze for a split second, then smiled, one of those rare, shy smiles that softened his entire face. Careful, Hoseok. You might make me fall faster. My heart stuttered. You're smooth, aren't you? I'm honest. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of laughter and warmth. I told him about Borum's antics at school, about my cooking disasters, about how proud I was whenever my son got good grades. He listened with that same gentle intensity, eyes fixed on me as though the world didn't exist beyond our small table. When we stepped outside, the night air was crisp. The city lights reflected in the river nearby. He looked down at me. Can I? Before I could ask what he meant, his hand brushed mine, tentative at first, then firmer. My breath caught. He didn't move closer, didn't demand anything. Just held my hand, fingers intertwining slowly, like he was memorizing the shape of my skin. I haven't done this in a long time, he murmured. Me neither, I whispered. And for that moment, standing beneath the silver glow of the street lamps, I allowed myself to forget everything. The past, the fear, the scars. All that mattered was that someone's hand was holding mine again. The next day at work, I was sorting files when Mr. Kong burst into the room. He's here. Everyone stand straight. The atmosphere turned electric. Even the air felt heavier. I straightened my tie, my heartbeat racing. This was it, the legendary CEO, the man behind every whisper. Then the elevator doors opened. A tall figure stepped out, wearing a perfectly tailored black suit. His hair slicked back neatly, his expression unreadable. His presence was magnetic, calm yet powerful. Every step he took made people unconsciously move aside. My eyes widened. That face. Those eyes. No, it couldn't be. He turned slightly and our gazes met. Just for a heartbeat, but in that single second the world stopped. Youngwoo. My Youngwoo. The man I'd held hands with under the streetlight was Young Sung-woo, the feared CEO of the Young Group. My legs nearly gave out. I somehow made it through the day without collapsing. My mind was chaos. Why didn't he tell me? Why pretend to be someone else? When I got home that evening, Borum was waiting as usual, munching on snacks. Appa. You look like you saw a ghost. I might have, I muttered, collapsing onto the couch. He tilted his head. What happened? The man I've been talking to, dating, is my boss. Borum blinked. The scary CEO? I groaned, covering my face. Yes. Then, instead of panicking, Borum grinned. Appa. That means he's rich. Borum. He giggled uncontrollably. Well, at least you won't have to worry about bills. I sighed deeply. That's not the point. But my son's laughter, innocent and bright, helped ease the storm in my chest, if only a little. That night I couldn't sleep. My phone buzzed, and when I saw his name my heart twisted. Youngwoo, can we talk? I hesitated, then typed back, "Me? Why didn't you tell me who you really were?" He replied instantly. "Youngwoo, because I wanted you to know me before you knew my name. Youngwoo, people see my money, my position, my power, not me. You saw me, Hoseok." I stared at the screen, torn between anger and understanding. "Me, you still lied, Youngwoo." "I did. And I'm sorry. But I didn't want to lose you before we even began." After a long silence I sighed. "Me, meet me tomorrow. Let's talk in person." We met again by the river, the same place where we'd first held hands. When he saw me he removed his coat and bowed slightly. "I owe you an apology, Hoseok." I crossed my arms. "You think?" He looked genuinely remorseful. "I should have told you. But I was afraid that once you knew, you'd treat me like everyone else does. With fear or expectations." I looked away. "You think I'm that shallow?" "No," he said softly. "That's why I fell for you." My heart skipped. He took a hesitant step closer. "When you told me about Borum, about how you fought for him, I saw strength I've never seen in anyone. You've built your life from nothing. And all I wanted was to be part of it, even if it meant hiding who I am." For a moment neither of us spoke. The city lights shimmered across the water. Then I whispered, "You scared me today. I thought I'd imagined everything between us." He shook his head gently. It was real. Every word, every moment. Slowly he reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek. I don't expect forgiveness, but I couldn't stand lying anymore. His eyes were unguarded, raw, not the CO everyone feared, but the man who'd texted me goodnight, who'd laughed at my clumsy jokes. I took a deep breath, then met his gaze. "Don't hide from me again." He smiled faintly. "Never." And before I could think, he leaned forward, pressing his lips softly against mine. It wasn't forceful or demanding, just warm, hesitant, real. When he pulled back he whispered, "I've wanted to do that since the day we met." I felt my cheeks flush, but I didn't pull away. Because despite everything, the lies, the fear, the shock, my heart had already made its choice. That night when I got home Borum was still awake, pretending to read. "So?" he asked eagerly. "Did you make up?" I smiled faintly, ruffling his hair. "Yeah, we did." He grinned, eyes sparkling. "Does that mean I'm getting a dad?" I chuckled softly. "We'll see, Borum. We'll see." But deep down I already knew, the wall between our worlds had begun to crumble. And maybe, just maybe, happiness was closer than I ever thought possible. When you've lived most of your life expecting things to fall apart, it's hard to believe when something actually goes right. Even after the truth about Youngwoo came out, I still woke up each morning wondering if it was all a dream, or worse, if I'd lose it all again. But he didn't disappear. He didn't run. He stayed. The morning after our talk by the river, I woke up to the smell of pancakes, which was strange because I didn't remember buying any mix. "Borum," I called groggily, "what are you?" I stopped dead at the kitchen doorway. Youngwoo was there, in my kitchen, wearing an apron that said "World's Best Dad," which Borum must have made him wear. He looked up and smiled sheepishly. "Good morning." "Good morning?" I echoed, stunned. When did you?" "Your son let me in," he said, flipping a pancake effortlessly. "Appa." Borum beamed from the table. "Look, he can cook. He said we can eat together." I blinked between the two of them. Youngwoo looked completely out of place and yet, somehow not. His sleeves were rolled up, hair slightly messy, the morning light catching on his features. "You're unbelievable," I muttered, trying not to smile. He chuckled. "You said I shouldn't hide from you anymore. So here I am." I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. "You're lucky you can cook." He laughed softly. "I'm lucky you're not throwing me out." Breakfast was chaos in the best way. Borum talked non-stop, telling Youngwoo about school, math competitions, and how his teacher said he might be too smart for his grade. Youngwoo listened with rapt attention, nodding, occasionally asking questions that made Borum light up even more. At one point, Borum leaned close and whispered, loudly enough for me to hear, "You know, you could be my dad if you want." I nearly spat out my juice. "Borum?" Youngwoo chuckled, glancing at me. "That's a big title, Borum. I'd have to earn it first." Borum nodded solemnly as if he were interviewing him. "Okay then. Let's see if you can handle us." The look they exchanged made something ache softly in my chest, a kind of warmth I hadn't felt in years. After that morning, Youngwoo started showing up more often. Sometimes after work, sometimes on weekends. He never came empty-handed. Once it was takeout from my favorite restaurant. Another time it was a box of new crayons and a drawing pad for Borum. It wasn't about the gifts, It was the way he came in like he belonged, like he wanted to earn his place in our lives one little moment at a time. Sometimes when Borum went to bed early, we'd sit on the couch with tea. "You're different here," I told him once. He raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" "Softer. More human, I guess. At work, everyone talks about you like you're a storm waiting to happen." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I am, sometimes. But with you, I don't have to be." There was a quiet in his words that made my chest tighten. "Do you ever get tired of being feared?" I asked. "All the time," he admitted. "I built walls because people wanted things from me, money, power, a name to use. But then I met you. You didn't want anything but honesty." I looked down, flustered. "And you gave me everything but that at first." He laughed softly. "Touché." Our eyes met. The air shifted, slow, warm, heavy with something unspoken. Then without a word he leaned closer. It wasn't sudden this time. He hesitated, inches away, giving me time to pull back. But I didn't. His hand came up, brushing a strand of hair from my cheek, his thumb resting lightly against my jaw. "May I?" he whispered. I nodded. His lips met mine, gentle, unhurried, but full of everything we'd both been holding back. It wasn't the fiery kind of kiss you see in movies, it was something deeper. A promise. When we finally pulled apart, my heart was racing. He smiled against my forehead. "You taste like coffee." I smacked his shoulder lightly, blushing. "Don't say things like that." He grinned. "Why not? It's true." I rolled my eyes but couldn't hide my smile. It was surprising how easily Borum and Youngwoo connected. They built Lego castles, played chess, and watched movies together on weekends. One evening, I came home late from work to find Youngwoo asleep on the couch, Borum tucked under his arm, both of them surrounded by snack wrappers and half-finished homework. The sight stopped me cold. For a long moment I just stood there watching them breathe and sink. Borum's small hand rested against Youngwoo's shirt, and Youngwoo's arm was protectively curled around him. It hit me then how far we'd come, from sleeping in shelters terrified and alone to having this. A home. A family. But not everyone was ready to accept it. Rumors began swirling at work. Someone had seen me leaving the CEO's private elevator once, after he'd given me a ride home in the rain. People whispered in the break room, glancing at me when they thought I couldn't see. "Did you hear? The CEO's getting close to that new Omega assistant." "Seriously? He's not even from an elite background." "I heard the Omega has a kid." Each word stung more than I wanted to admit. That evening, I cornered Youngwoo in his office. "People are talking. You need to stop picking me up." He looked up from his paperwork. "I don't care what they say." "Well, I do." I snapped, then immediately softened when I saw the hurt flicker in his eyes. "I just don't want to make things harder for you." He stood, moving closer until he was right in front of me. "Hosiak, do you think I care about whispers? Let them talk. They've feared me long enough, maybe it's time they learn I can love too." My breath caught. "Love?" He smiled faintly. "Yes, love." Before I could reply, he reached out, lacing his fingers with mine. "You and Borum, you're my piece, Hosiak. The world can say what it wants. I won't let it touch you." Something in his voice, quiet but steady, made my heart tremble. A month later, Borum came home with a handmade card. "Appa, we were supposed to make a Father's Day gift today." I smiled. "That's nice. But you can give it to me later." He shook his head. "It's not for you this time." I blinked. "Oh, then who?" He turned to Youngwoo, who had just walked in, suit jacket slung over one arm. "It's for you, Youngwoo Appa," Borum declared proudly, holding out the crookedly folded card. Youngwoo froze. For a moment he just stared at it, lips parted like he couldn't quite believe it was real. Then, slowly he knelt and took the card with both hands. "Can I, really?" Borum nodded enthusiastically. "You said you wanted to earn it, right? You already did." Youngwoo's expression softened, something raw and beautiful flickering in his eyes. He pulled Borum into a hug, one hand cradling the back of his head. "Thank you," he whispered. "That's the best gift I've ever received." I watched them, tears threatening to spill. For so long, I'd thought Borum would never have someone to call father, and I never thought I'd have someone to call home. But here they were. My son, my alpha, my family. Later that night, after Borum had fallen asleep, Youngwoo and I stood by the window, the city lights glittering below. He slipped an arm around my waist, pulling me gently against him. "Do you regret any of this?" he asked quietly. I looked up at him. "Not a single thing." He smiled, pressing a kiss to my hair. "Then I guess I'm the luckiest man in Seoul." "You're ridiculous," I murmured, smiling into his chest. "And you're beautiful," he replied simply. The world outside was loud, judgmental, chaotic. But here, in his arms, with my son asleep in the next room, everything was calm. I'd spent years surviving. Now for the first time I was living. Happiness has a strange way of making you nervous, as though it's something too fragile, too fleeting to hold. Even as the days with Young-woo and Borum grew warmer and more natural, part of me still feared the other shoe would drop. But he never gave me reason to doubt that he kept showing up, day after day, in little ways, quiet ways, steady ways. Until one morning he did something I never imagined possible. "Hoseok," Young-woo said one Saturday morning as we finished breakfast. "There's something I want to ask you." I looked up from my coffee, curious. "You sound serious." He smiled slightly, but his tone remained careful. "Next weekend, my company is hosting a formal dinner. All the board members, investors, and their families will be there." I blinked. "Oh, that sounds intense." "It will be," he admitted. "But I want you and Borum to come with me." My spoon froze halfway to my mouth. "What?" He reached across the table, his hand warm against mine. "You're my family. I want them to see that." My chest tightened. The thought of walking into a room full of powerful people, people who whispered about omegas like me, single parents, scandal, made my stomach churn. "I don't know, Young-woo." He squeezed my hand gently. "You've faced worse than them, haven't you?" I looked into his eyes, calm, certain, patient. And maybe for the first time in my life I believed that love didn't have to hide. Borum looked like a tiny prince in his black vest and neatly combed hair. He wouldn't stop spinning in front of the mirror. "Appa, look. I'm handsome." I laughed softly. "You've always been handsome." Then Young-woo stepped into the room and my breath caught. He wore a dark tailored suit that fit him like it had been made by the gods themselves. His tie was a deep shade of silver matching my shirt, something I hadn't noticed until then. "You look perfect," I murmured. He smiled. "And you look like trouble." I flushed. "That's not funny." He chuckled, brushing a thumb along my jaw. "It's true though." For a brief moment the air between us shifted. His fingers lingered, tracing the curve of my cheek, the edge of my collar. "Stop looking at me like that," I whispered, heart racing. He leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. "Like what?" "Like you're about to." Before I could finish he kissed me, slow, deliberate, gentle at first, then deeper. The kind of kiss that left no doubt. His hand slid up to the back of my neck, holding me close, his thumb brushing soothing circles against my skin. By the time we pulled apart I was breathless and blushing. Borum groaned dramatically. "Appa. Not before dinner." Young-woo laughed, straightening his tie. "Let's go before your son disowns me." The gala was grand, chandeliers, champagne, whispers that traveled faster than light. When Young-woo entered with his hand at my back and Borum holding my other hand, all conversation stopped. I felt their eyes like heat on my skin, curious, judgmental, shocked. Someone whispered, "Is that the CEO's Omega?" Another murmured, "He brought a child?" I almost turned around, but Young-woo's hand tightened reassuringly. "Hat up," he murmured. "You belong here." He led us through the hall like the room itself bent around him. Every step beside him felt like walking into sunlight after years of cold. At the main table, one of the older board members spoke with thinly veiled disapproval. "CEO Young, this is quite unexpected. Bringing your family?" Young-woo smiled coolly. "It shouldn't be. I'm proud of them." A murmur swept through the crowd, but he ignored it, turning toward me. "This is Hoseok. And this is our son Borum." The word "our" sent warmth spiraling through me. The rest of the night blurred by polite smiles, stares I pretended not to see, Young-woo's hand never once leaving mine. When we danced later, he whispered, "You did beautifully tonight." I chuckled. I barely said a word. "That's why," he teased. He pulled me closer as the music slowed, his forehead resting lightly against mine. "You don't have to hide anymore," he murmured. I looked up at him, really looked, and realized he wasn't just saying it to comfort me, that he meant it, that he'd stand against the world if it meant I could live without fear. After the gala, Borum fell asleep in the back seat on the drive home. When we got to the apartment, Young-woo carried him inside, careful not to wake him, then tucked him in with a tenderness that made my heart ache. Once Borum was asleep, the house felt different, quieter, softer. Young-woo turned to me in the dim light of the living room. "May I stay tonight?" I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Stay." He smiled gently and stepped closer, his hands finding my waist. "You make this place feel like home, Hoseok." When he kissed me again, it was unhurried, a quiet promise more than a demand. His touch was careful, reverent, as though he was memorizing every breath, every tremble, every heartbeat between us. We moved to the couch, laughter mingling with whispered words. His forehead pressed against mine, our breaths tangled. "I love you," he murmured against my lips. "Not for what you've survived, but for who you are." I cupped his face, smiling through the tears that threatened. "Then love me as I am." His answer was another kiss, deeper this time but still tender, still full of restraint and warmth. It wasn't about hunger or dominance, that it was about connection, two souls finding a rhythm that finally made sense. When we eventually pulled apart, I leaned against his chest, hearing the steady thud of his heart beneath my ear. For once, I didn't feel small, that I didn't feel broken, that I felt wanted. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains. I woke to find Young-woo watching me, his hair mussed, his smile soft. "Good morning," he said quietly. "Morning," I murmured, still half asleep. He reached for my hand. "Move in with me." I blinked, sitting up. "What?" "I mean it," he said. "You and Borum. Come live with me. No more hiding, no more rumors. Just us." My heart pounded. "That's a big step." "It's the right one," he said simply. "You've carried the weight of the world alone for too long. Let me share it." I couldn't speak for a moment. His eyes were so open, so earnest, I couldn't find it in me to say no. Then from the doorway a small voice piped up, "Does that mean we're getting a big house?" We turned to see Borum, hair sticking up, rubbing his eyes. Young-woo smiled. "Yes, in your own room. Maybe even a dog." Borum gasped. "A dog? Appa, say yes." I laughed, shaking my head. "How can I say no now?" Borum squealed in victory, running to hug us both. Young-woo wrapped an arm around me and the other around him, pulling us into a warm, tight embrace. "This," Young-woo said softly, "is what I was looking for." Moving in together wasn't perfect. There were small adjustments, arguments about laundry, and mornings when Borum woke up early enough to ruin every romantic plan we made. But every day I woke up beside Young-woo and felt something new, peace. He never let me forget how much he loved us. On our 1-year anniversary, he surprised me by taking us back to the river where we'd first met. The same quiet spot, the same gentle breeze. He held my hands and knelt down, not with a ring but with a small silver bracelet. "I don't need promises written on paper," he said. "I just want this reminder, that no matter what happens I'll choose you. Every time." I felt my throat tighten as I nodded, tears slipping free. He stood, cupping my face in both hands before kissing me, slow, deep, and filled with every word he didn't say aloud. Borum, sitting on the bench nearby, covered his eyes dramatically. "You're doing it again." We both laughed through our tears, pulling him into our arms. Under the wide Seoul sky, with the river whispering beside us, I finally understood what home truly meant. It wasn't a place that was two hearts and one small mischievous boy, all tangled up in love. Sometimes I think back to that night years ago when I stood in the rain holding my unborn son, believing I had nothing left. If I could speak to that version of me, I'd tell him this. Someday you'll find warmth again. Someday someone will hold your hand and never let go. Someday love will come quietly, and it will stay. And when it does, it won't be a miracle from the heavens, that it'll be the reward for surviving long enough to find peace.